for me, when you talk about non-theism, it's almost like the question of the objective existence of God is just the wrong question.
Yeah. The core of the non-theist position is rejecting the shared, so it rejects the shared presuppositions of both the theist and the atheist about how to best understand this phenomena that you and I are clearly exists, which is the experience of the sacred that is really transformative of people. So, right, and what I think is the idea that, trying to frame this in terms of the existence or non-existence of a being, and that it's primarily that the way we understand that is by manipulating beliefs, and that we can sort of nail down, get some final answer about the most appropriate symbols for that. These are all things, right? And so the theist says yes to all of those, and the atheist agrees that that's the right framing and then says no to all of those. And the non-theist says, no, I reject that framing. That framing is, I think, actually misframing the phenomena and the meaning that is afforded by the connectedness that the phenomena is pointing to. So the non-theist, rejects that question. The non-theist says, can we come up with framing that puts I once described this to you, that affords us to fall deeply in love with being once again.
Mm-hmm. This is very that's a Nietzschean thing almost, right?
It's Nietzschean in some way, but I think it's Heideggerian, because I think the problem, this is a critique that Heidegger made of Nietzsche, that Nietzsche basically is still locked into. Nietzsche basically inverts Christianity, so he's still locked to it. So I think the atheist just inverts theism, and they're still locked to it, and I want to break out of it.
It's kind of like the white supremacy versus white oppression narrative, right? It's like the first way that a narrative that doesn't serve, the first response to it is just its inverse.
Yes, exactly. And you have to try and break past them, which is what you were trying to talk about with your example of parkour, that neither the white supremacy or the white oppression model explains what actually emerged and was created in that situation.
Yeah, by these kids who came from, and they had agency. They created this.
Yeah.
And it works. It works as a tool to bridge, right? And I think that in some ways, you can almost view parkour as a kind of analogy or a potential precursor to how can we build these tools that function. It's like God doesn't, whether God exists in a sort of external metaphysical objective sense, it kind of doesn't matter, because the representation of God or the meaningfulness of those things has to exist for us on some level.
Yes.
And if we're not addressing that, and if we can't address it in a way that can invite in the believers and the non-believers, then we're just stuck with war, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's why I think that's why I'm so attracted to your project, because as much as I love and respect what Peterson's done, he kind of flirts at the edge of saying it's neither.
Yeah.
He rejects the atheism, and he describes Christianity in such a way that it'd be very easy to be non-theistic, but he doesn't go to the point of saying, I'm actually approaching this as a non-theist.
Yeah, and I've criticized him for not doing that, because I think you can make a very clear case that Jung is a non-theist, for example. I've been trying to articulate this with this notion of transjectivity and the notion of this
is extraordinarily valuable. Like, that just blew my mind when I first encountered the idea of transjectivity, that there's the object, there's the observer of the object, and then there's the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And that so much of where we get stuck is reframed once you recognize that there's a reality within the relationship.
Yeah, well, that's exactly, and and I think I've been helped by people like Corbin, and and the imaginal as not the subjective image or just the objective thing, but as the enacted image schema that actually allows us to afford find transjectivity, find that connectedness. And I see a lot of I see a lot of what you're doing in parkour is exactly that kind of enacted imaginal work, imaginal play, I should say. The whole point about the metaphor is we can't win by playing the game. That's right. My way of trying to understand what it is to not play their game and to shift over to a totally different game, to shift the culture.